If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to Downfall Network for more cool content. What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
I'm Shredlord.
And we have an album review for you. So today we are reviewing the debut EP from Living Gate, Deathlust. This comes out on Relapse Records on the 12th of June. And this is kind of a supergroup, I guess?
An ultra mega group.
Yes.
It's a group, and they're from other bands, and yes, they're pretty super. This band features members of Oathbreaker, Amen-Ra, and Yob. These guys actually sort of came together on this project on a tour. I believe it was the tour that I saw with Yob and Amen-Ra, and pretty much just discussed their love of classic death metal, namely Morbid Angel, Suffocation, and Death, and some newer bands as well, like Tomb Mold and Blood Incantation, and pretty much said, hey, you guys want to do a death metal project? And they pretty much jumped right on it. And
okay.
Yeah. So we have this awesome EP, and it kicks off with The Delusion of Consciousness, which right away I heard the Suffocation influence immediately. The palm muted chugs, the riffs almost scream Terrence Hobbs sort of style of writing, where it's just very palm muted, very aggressive, lots of cool groovy breakdowns. Man, solid opener.
Yeah, their use of the heavy palm muted riffs mixed with the groove parts made a really nice contrast for both. Actually, I feel like Delusions of Consciousness and Roped kind of had that same stylistic kind of feel, where they would mix those nice palm mutes with the groovy sections, and that was a very cool contrast once again.
It's very Floridian death metal, but there's also a lot of other elements mixed in. Like you hear it in Rope, the next track, with the dissonant melodies as well. And dissonant melodies also pop up in the title track, or Living Gate, rather, the band's title track.
Something Behemoth could have used.
Yes, Behemoth could have really used that on the last EP. But we digress.
They could have used a different cover as well. But
yes.
Yeah.
One cool little nuance I actually loved in that opening track was towards the end there is a break, and you think the song's about to be over. It's kind of a false ending, and then boom, the lead melody comes in, and then the rest of the music comes in, and it's just this cool little writing flair. And there's tons of really cool writing flares on this. Their use of different styles. Like, you can definitely hear the bands that influenced them on this, but you can also hear a bit of their own touches as well. And Jesus, man, this is very guitar-driven. Which
I absolutely adore. And like Necrotic was saying, there was little intricacies in the riffs that made it not repetitive. Sometimes a band will repeat the same two riffs, A, B, A, B. Well, you know, it'd be A and then A with a little bit of a tag ending, and then B, and then B would have a little bit of a tag ending and go back and forth. So those little touches really just powered the song.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And this pretty much kind of like reminded me of think about like supergroups. Sometimes supergroups kind of fall short because you get too many alphas in the room and they all want one thing to sound one way, and it's a lot of headbutting. This screams more like the Bloodbath kind of supergroup, where everyone was on the same page, singular mission. This is what we love, this is what we want to do, and I think the ideas were pretty much just flowing because these songs were just really well constructed.
Yes.
The third track, Deathlust, to me is where it started getting a little bit more interesting and a little bit more intricate as far as the songwriting went. Once again, there's been those intricacies in the first two tracks, but they took it a little bit further. And there was even a section where the music cut out, and you have this small bass section, which was super fucking cool, and that's a really nice high point for me on the album. And for me, I enjoyed the first half of the album, but when Deathlust came on, that was almost the turning point of the EP for me, to where it went from like first and second gear, like right into fucking fifth gear, and the rest of the EP just blew my mind.
I loved that palm muted melody. Like, they pretty much did almost like kind of same chug they had in the opening track, but they added a cool little melody. There was a progression to it, and really kind of reminded me of like Black Dahlia Murder. Not necessarily melodic death. I wouldn't call any of this melodic death. And it's very
just
much
like touches of
just
melodic.
touches.
Like,
just touches.
Like it's really done well.
And speaking of Black Dahlia Murder, we see you, Trevor, jumping around in the quarantine drams in your underwear. We appreciate it.
Thank you. As there's only 5 tracks on this album and every track kicked ass, next in line was Heaven Ablaze, which just comes out swinging, but sounds more like Blackened Death as well.
Yeah, there are some blackened touches. I got a little bit on Living Gate, the track particularly, but this one I loved the big driving stomp of how it just comes in. And this is the one where I think the tremolo riffs really kind of had that Morbid Angel sound. And especially the solo on this one really kind of had the Trey Azagoth. It's like, well, we can be melodic, but we can also sound like we're batshit crazy at the same time.
I like how they repeat the breakdown in here too.
Yes.
And it's got, to me it sounds like it's mostly the bass being played. Like the guitar takes a little bit of a back seat and it sounds very bassy in the breakdown, which adds a really cool element.
I really enjoyed a lot of the riff structure on here. Like, it kind of got me outside of the bands they said they were bringing up. Like, it really reminded me a lot of Atheist and Incantation, especially in the faster sections where it's chaotic, but there's a really cool melody or a pattern to it that you
I
can
get
just
some
get
deicide
into.
out of it too.
And they do a nice job of pulling it back in when they need to as well. As chaotic as it gets, they pull it back in
hooks
masterfully.
There are hooks on this
all
thing.
over.
Hooks ablaze.
Especially in the again in Deathlust. Deathlust had a good hook to the chorus, a good hook to the verse.
Dynamic songwriting.
Yep.
It's pretty much like all the fury and chaos that's in a Suffocation album, but you have like Death and Morbid Angel's sense of dynamics and atmosphere. And atmosphere was huge on Living Gate, the song. This one brought back those dissonant melodies, and how they capped off that opening riff with that little dissonant melody at the end. I was like, dude, that is just beautiful.
I like the dual vocals on Living Gate as well.
Yes.
It's got both the high register and the lower register underneath it.
It's a nice low growl, and you got that dry, throaty scream, almost like Chuck, a little bit. The production overall on this, I think, is excellent. It's very guitar forward.
Yes.
Like, that guitar is right out in front. I think the vocals are a little bit back in the mix, but I think that's where they really belong, because they're kind of just like an extra layer of atmosphere.
Yeah, and if it was too far up, maybe it would sound a little too harsh.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it was in a good spot. It cut through, and I could hear everything perfectly. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's just a biasm, but you know, when I'm listening to metal, I want to hear those fucking guitars ripping, man. And they were fucking ripping.
There's a little bit in that last track that also reminded me of Spiritual Healing, which is such an amazing album too, and that little bit of nostalgia too. And this isn't all nostalgia. This still feels fresh and new, but man, they play well with their influences, but they don't pretty much just kind of recycle any of their
Work
stuff.
and play well with others.
There you go.
Work and play well with others.
Pretty much overall, I love this, and I want, and I feel rude if I demanded, but it's kind of close to that. I want a full length.
Yes, please.
This is absolutely killer. Strong songwriting. This is pretty much everything I love about death metal. And honestly, if you love death metal in any aspect,
You'll enjoy this.
I think you'll enjoy this. It has that Floridian thrashy stuff. It can be atmospheric, it can be kind of cavernous sometimes. It's awesome. And I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. And I will go ahead and say that this is probably the best EP I've listened to this year. And in terms of getting me excited for future releases, I already want more. And I've already jammed this like 3 times.
Because that doesn't happen a whole lot, especially with EPs, where you're, at least recently, where I've been excited to hear what the full length sounds like. Like, this is just grabs me by the
cojones.
The cojones, the balls.
The boys.
Tickles the balls.
Downstairs mix up.
I'm actually going to give it a 5. Again, it's really tough to give EPs 5 stars, but every song on here kicked ass. The mix kicked ass. We jammed it 2 times in a row, and already I want to go jam it again. Please put out a full length. Please.
I'm firmly on board with that.
He's a clean boy! Put out your own damn EP! Now, anyone who knows me knows that I enjoy EPs, but I try not to blow EPs and ride their weenies. But in this case, I only blow full lengths. But in this case, I'm gonna ride the weenie here. I'm gonna ride the weenie here and give it a 4 out of 5. And for me, I feel like for any EP, that's pretty high and in a high and mighty praise. I also would love for these guys to find time in their schedules to put out a full length and see, you know, what the next batch of tunes to add to this would be.
Yep.
It was a fucking bomb-ass listen, so yeah.
So, if you guys like the review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. And we're also on Instagram.
And we're also on Instagram. So if you want to swing on by and give us a like there, if you are in a band that is not signed, or you just can't seem to find your fans, throw me a message and I'll review your album on What's John Jammin'. So
he will ride your sonic weenie and give his opinion.
I don't know about...
No, he will. I'm vouching for it. He'll do it.
He'll do it.
Anyway, thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.